don't know if my next guest has ever had a parrot before, but he knows a lot about a lot. His name is Michael Precia. He is the CEO at Fleetworthy Solutions.
Morning.
What's up? How you doing today? How are things? It's pouring out here in Chattanooga. We had that hazy smoke yesterday.
Yeah, we had the smoke yesterday and hot and humid for Wisconsin. So summer usually lasts about 3 days, so it should be over in a couple days.
Not going good. Not going good. Well, what's new over at Fleetworthy?
Well, first I'm feeling left. I got to change. I got to wear a hat next time I come on your show. I was like looking at your former guest, and you're all wearing hats. I need to sport a hat the next time I'm on with you.
Yeah, just put a QR code on it, throw it on your head. People can scan the screen, and they can make it right over to your website.
Exactly.
I saw some interesting statistics that you had just posted on LinkedIn. It said 5 statistics that will guide your claim and injury focus as a motor carrier. And it said at least 39% of large truck occupants were killed in crashes were not wearing a seatbelt. That one stuck out to me because we put a poll out to the What the Truck audience a couple weeks ago asking drivers if they didn't wear seatbelts. And it was it was around 25 to 30% of our audience that said they didn't wear seatbelts. And I was like, why? It made no sense to me.
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense to me either. But, with all the regulatory pressure, seatbelts isn't one that seems to be being looked at a lot.
Well, that's one way to work on driver risk mitigation. What about company risk mitigation? Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I think one thing that I point out is I think a lot of people are misconstruing, trying to stop accidents and make sure accidents don't occur on the roadways versus risk mitigation, right? So every carrier, every person doesn't want to see an accident occur. When we talk about risk mitigation, we want to help our carriers and our customers make sure that they can prove that, they're taking all the steps needed to make sure that their drivers are safe and they're contributing to making sure the roads are safer.
What are some of those methods? What are some of those steps that they can take?
So, they need to show that they understand their regulations and that they're proactively taking steps to show that they have a culture that takes safety seriously. It starts with making sure that you have good records so that when that accident occurs and a plaintiff attorney is trying to race towards proving negligence, we're showing that it's not negligence, it's just an accident, right? And what you need is a foundation and a historical foundation that shows that you do all the things that are necessary to make sure that that driver that's in that commercial vehicle is doing all the right things. And an accident is just something that was unfortunate and couldn't be helped.
Do you think that fleets need to use the full suite of the outward camera, the inward camera, all the tracking and all that? Is that a big part of that program too, and being best in class?
Yeah, I think carriers need to have, a group of people that are focusing on emerging technology and making sure that they're making decisions on things that will actually make an impact on them being a safer carrier. There's a lot of different approaches you can take. At Fleetworthy, we feel that we need to become a more proactive industry rather than reactive. So we're always trying to do things that, how can we feed you data that allows you to make proactive decisions to, keep your drivers safe and anyone on the roadway with your drivers.
What's the difference between company risk mitigation and public risk mitigation?
So, public risk mitigation are things that, whether it's drug testing or hours of service and the FMCSA and the government saying, what are things that we can do to make sure that, our carriers of all sizes are doing the right things to make sure they're putting, qualified drivers on the road and they're doing things to mitigate, bad accidents and things. Company risk mitigation is, how do I create, a foundation that shows that, we're constantly doing things to improve, the safety of our drivers. And that takes, a lot of time. So they're reacting to regulatory changes, but trying to figure out how do we react to those changes in a way that's actually logical and is actually going to, help make the road safer. I look at hours of service. Hours of service is a great program, but the reality is if a driver gets into the cab to start, their shift and they're fatigued or they're in some sort of crisis, hours of service rules is not going to help that.
No, it's
so,
not. I was going to say it's funny because the DOT, they put out a report about 2 months ago about ELDs, and they're like, we're still not sure if they're really preventing anything. What is your? I mean, obviously you got to use the ELDs, right? But how do you make sure the driver? Because beyond the computer doesn't know how the driver actually feels. Like, how do you make sure that's accounted for?
Yeah, so I think if the goal is safety, yes, there's equations about how much time you should drive, how much time you should be in the sleeper berth, all those things. But we're trying to figure out ways to how can we monitor that driver real time, making sure that there is no crises or fatigue situations that have nothing to do with the number of hours that person's been driving. Maybe it's things that occurred before they got in the cab, illness, crisis at home. So the more and more we can benchmark and keep track of how people are doing real time, I think, that's the goal. That's the path to getting to safer roads.
What about speed limiters? I thought this was interesting, and I'm not sure if this is a big number or a low number. It said speed was a factor in 36% of CMV crashes. I would think speed would be higher, but maybe not.
Yeah, and high speed could be one aspect of the problem, but I think there's probably many other things that you could look at and come to a lot of different conclusions, right? But is it speed limiters? Is it, there's a lot of different things you could look at. Should we be segmenting the roadways to get commercial vehicles maybe in a different lane of travel than, small vehicle? I mean, I think there's a lot of approaches. The question is what's the right one?
Yeah. Well, what is, so speaking of right approaches, what is the best way to manage your DQ files?
So to us, we take a three-legged stool approach. And what I mean by that is, we think we have a leading technology to make it easy for our customers to consume data, make sure it's accurate, and make sure we're giving them dashboards and things that they can benchmark. But we also have, a staff of subject matter experts that are monitoring changes in rules, doing real-time audits of documents and things. So that, we know that when a file is supposed to be proper and per the regs, we know that it is, both technologically and with a human set of eyes. And then the last thing is, I've said this before, there's this uneven situation when you look at carriers. They have trucks that are highly technical and they're advancing technologically almost every day. And then they have back offices that is lagging, right? Still using spreadsheets, papers, AS400s, green screens, and things. So it's a hard situation to really consume that data and analyze it if you don't have a place for it. So, we say leverage our product that's in the cloud. Let us take all that data, lay that data beside one another, and then create actionable, tasks and work requests so that our carriers are proactively doing the right things.
Thefts go up during the holidays, cargo thefts, and I was curious, does safety oversights go up during the holidays as well? We got the 4th coming up, and it falls weird this year. It falls on a Tuesday, so a lot of people are already out of office. I don't know if you've emailed anybody today, but since yesterday, people have just been gone.
Well, I think there are a lot of different trends, but you could say holidays and things, but let's go back to that hours of service, regulations. Do people make bad decisions when they are closer to home and running out of time? I mean, it's not just holidays and things. It's what's happening in a driver's life that makes them maybe push the edge because, hey, I'm close to home. I'm close to running out of time. I want to make the decision to get home, right? So I think there's a lot of factors that change the decisions that are being made in the cab, not just holidays, but things that are happening for that driver personally.
Now, let me ask you, before I let you go, I've been asking everybody today, who is the greatest American character of all time? Show them this one here. We got Captain America, Dolly Parton, Mel Gibson from The Patriot, Kenny Powers from Eastbound and Down. We got Will Smith in Independence Day. You got Rocky on there. You've got Maverick, and you got Jack Bauer.
No question, it's Jack Bauer.
Yeah. Jack, easy one. You didn't even hesitate. You were like, I went right to him.
He's the man.
He's the man. Well, hey, people who want to be the man, they want to go beyond compliant, they want to work with you, where do I send them to?
Go to www.fleetworthy.com. Plethora of information there that you can tap into and get in touch with, either one of our subject matter experts in our client services department that I think is best in the business, or any of our salespeople will be happy to talk to you about all the things that we're doing to try to help make the road safer.
You have a happy and safe holiday weekend. Take care, sir.
You as well. Thanks for having me.